people want to have an easy, convenient experience really the first time they start touching the club. So even from the point of view of just registration and clarity of what the service is.
This is Velocitize Talks, and I'm Eric Jones. I'm here with Anthony Richardson, who's the head of digital at SportsTG. Anthony, great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about SportsTG and what the agency does.
SportsTG has been around in Australia for around 17 years. It's actually the conglomeration of several technology sporting companies that have come together over the years to really, own the grassroots sporting space. Predominantly what we do is we take membership and registration of athletes, and we have a competitions product. So all of those members sign up to play their sport, and we have a product that allows them to be allocated to teams, to clubs, to leagues, and have their fixtures and results, ladders and stats all available online. Our position overall is to be a tech provider for sport that helps sports really have that one-stop shop that then allows them to grow their sport through the use of technology.
Tell us a little bit about how digital has in fact made it a far better experience for everybody.
You can see at the elite levels, as we talk about fan experience and broadcast and player performance and recruitment, that there's, and even the media and the content consumption that goes on now at the elite level has exploded. And the question now is, how do we then start to bring some of that benefit back down into the grassroots community? A lot of those grassroots clubs are still predominantly driven by volunteers. So there's a real question of how do you make it really easy for volunteers who may well be untrained to have an easy experience, to try and get the game together so that the kids and the juniors can play.
How are you counseling leagues and things like that to adopt some of those similar moves that we're seeing at the elite level at the grassroots level?
First and foremost, people want to have an easy, convenient experience really the first time they start touching the club. So even from the point of view of just registration and clarity of what the service is. Then I think what we're now starting to see is that clubs want to have a social presence, and they want to have a website, and they want to make use of an e-commerce store to try and sell some paraphernalia and grow their membership. And finally, they really want to try to create value for their sponsors. So at the moment, I think there's still a maturing going on where clubs are trying to understand how to use social to attract people to the main website, how to convert that into someone wanting to sign up, how to then use, say, a website presence or a social presence to advance a sponsor into their community's eyes.
What are some of the unique considerations for, let's say, a sports website versus a website that you might build for a retailer or somebody else?
When you look at retail, there's a lot more of a content story going on. In particular, for large brands, you take a Ralph Lauren or something, and their e-stores are somewhat more like a blogging site, and they project a certain lifestyle. For us, we're really creating, website experiences that are good looking, clean and simple, that in the end do meet a budget. And an advantage that we bring by virtue of running the competitions is we do integrations with our fixturing. So that's a really important reason to visit the club's website, is to find out where you're playing and see how the other teams are going.
What is it, do you think, about sports that makes it all so attractive to advertisers and to sponsors?
There's people call sport unscripted drama. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting following the plots and subplots of different teams and players across a season, and even now the political movements within sports are really enhanced and reported on, and are now part of the broader fabric of experiencing the sport
How about from a training perspective? How does some of the digital experiences that you guys create help facilitate, better nutrition, better training, and all of that stuff for youths across Australia?
We have kind of like a digital magazine that is by the athlete for the athlete. It's called stack.com, and that's about bringing athletes' stories to youth sport, to have them understand the pathway that they took. Similarly, when we talk about pathways, we're now offering more products that are about performance and recruitment. So we're seeing that certainly at the elite level, and now at some of the development league levels, they're starting to use eye training technologies and better trajectory analysis for a basketball shot to help really understand the potential of the athlete and also to develop the athlete as well.
How do you balance things like all of the wearable data that you can get now, and how do you integrate that into the various sort of websites or digital experiences that you build?
I think it's a interesting area. It's still to come more fully as an integrated experience. I think we're seeing that while there are products out there, they're a little bit standalone, and so there's a challenge for the industry to actually take that data and bring it back to some central platform to really then get data and insight. More and more across grassroots sports, we're seeing studies getting conducted. Some examples are concussion studies, and so the use of helmets to assess impacts, and in fact mouth guards as well. I guess that's a challenge for us today is how do we build open platforms that allow for the ingestion of data to then build actionable insight on the way out.
How do you think VR will play out at the youth sports level?
Well, I think there's definitely a role at that more developmental, talent identified, let's develop the talent level, so that VR is great for, even great currently for simulation. A great success they've had is taking that modelling and applying that into gaming, and you can see it coming out in esports as well. And so certainly, the VR experience I think is very relevant for esports. But the other thing that I've really noticed with the advent of gaming and the games like NBA 2K and FIFA, the realism of the action of the individual athletes in those games is now fantastic. And I think the kids are learning a lot just through watching and playing those esport type games. And again, they're going out and replicating the movement of their favourite players.
What technologies do you see coming down the pike that you think will further change sport as we know it, training and all that stuff?
The human mechanics type technologies are helping to create databases of information about athletes. I think that we've certainly seen that sophistication around recruitment has increased, but I think it's starting to lengthen because kids from very young ages are starting to get exposed to technologies and platforms that even just take statistics. And so I think recruiters will start to look at a much longer journey and data background of every athlete as they look at their entire growth.
I think it's a real challenge. In the United States, I don't know if it's like this in Australia, but there's this push for extreme specialization in sports. So, if you decide you want to become, let's say, a baseball player, all of a sudden you have to train, and you actually have practices 7 days a week and things like that. Are you seeing that here? How are you sort of balancing things for the athlete so that they have these opportunities and they stay interested and they continue with their sports versus getting burned out?
Yeah, I think Australian sport is doing a good job of ensuring that participation stays high. And particularly at the junior levels, it's through simply having really strong programs for the 5 to 7-year-old kids that are really much more focused on participation and starting to develop coordination and, I guess pacing the athlete to their developmental stage. For people who are of an older generation, there's a little bit of a natural backlash to say, well, let's get these kids to win, win, win. And why are they so protected when all the evidence shows that majority of the kids just want to meet some friends, just want to have fun. Of course, there'll be the 1%, 5% who want to excel, and we need to give them the ability to do that. But it's much more beneficial to the sport and to the community that we make sure people have the opportunity to stay within the sport and not feel like they're not good enough, so they're on their way out.
Anthony, one of the questions we love asking our guests is a book that you'd like to recommend to our viewers.
I'm more about podcasts and news feeds at the moment, so I really love SportsTG. I think that's very relevant. Gets together great content across a range of different technology issues. And then just general technology feeds like a GeekWire is really good.
Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Anthony Richardson, the head of digital at SportsTG.